Hey there guys, it's Tina and I'm back and I am finally doing my review video and my looks with the Melt Cosmetics Blueprint palette. I picked this up in a haul a while back and I asked you guys if you wanted me to do a review video, and even though I'm late to the game, hopefully this video is still helpful in deciding whether or not you want to pick this palette up. So this is the newest stack turn palette from Melt Cosmetics. So they already had the Blueprint stack. So you guys know their stacks, right? They look like this. So they've been converting all their stacks into eyeshadow palettes, and this one is the latest to be converted. So this is an 8-pan eyeshadow palette. The Blueprint stack actually had all 8 of these shades, so there are no new shades added to this color story. And if you remember the stack, it had 4 layers, but each of the layers had a split pan. So there were 2 shadows side by side, which is why I didn't pick up that stack in the first place. I was just not interested in the split pans. I love the color story. I love the shades that were included. I mean, it's blue. It was definitely a color story that was right up my alley, but I just did not want it in the stack format. And I am so happy that they finally decided to convert this into a palette. And I wonder which stack will be next, because they have a few more stacks out there that are being phased out slowly. So I'm expecting to see a couple more of those older stacks being converted into this palette format. So we're gonna do quite a few things in this video. The first thing I'm gonna do is, of course, swatches. So I'm gonna go through the color descriptions and swatch these eyeshadows so you can see the color story for yourself, to see how these eyeshadows apply just with the finger on a bare arm. Then, of course, I'm gonna get into a couple of looks featuring this palette. I have 2 looks for you. One that's more subdued, more wearable, and of course, this is going to be the second look that you can check out. And then I'm going to finish up with my final thoughts on the performance and application of these eyeshadows. So if that sounds interesting to you, then stay tuned. I will also leave timestamps down below so you can navigate this video and jump around to whichever section you're interested in. But without much further ado, let's go ahead and start out with these swatches. So let's go ahead and take a quick look at the packaging for this palette. It comes in a white and blue box. The base is white, the writing is blue, and there are various design drawings on the box as well as the palette that shows their different products and different design components. And I think this is so cute to represent what a blueprint stands for. The palette itself is this beautiful metallic blue with white writing, and it has the same design elements on the packaging. And the palette is just a simple coated cardboard packaging, which I really love. Inside we have a mirror in the top of the packaging, and then below that we have all 8 of the eyeshadows laid out, and they're laid out by the color theme. So we have the blue side and then the bronzy side, and the names are printed below each eyeshadow in white. And I think this packaging is stunning. It's beautiful, it's sleek, and it feels like great quality. So I love this packaging. Now let's go ahead and jump into the swatches. So we're going to start out with the blue side of the palette, and the first shade up is Skylight, which is described as a celestial baby blue shimmer. And it says here, the chunky pearl in this sheer shade will brighten any room. Add it to the center of the lid over the top of your blue metallics for that extra pop of light. This shade is very soft and it does feel loose in the palette, so be careful when you're applying this. And it is indeed a sheer shade. To me, it gives more of a minty vibe than a baby blue, but there are some blue hints to it. And just like it's described, it's more on the chunky side, so you do have to smooth it out, and it is also pretty sheer, so you would have to use it as an accent shade or on the inner tear duct for a pop of light. Then next up we have the shade Deadbolt, which is described as a sparkling sky blue metallic that will have any look on lock. This shade is a little bit more sheer, so it does need some building up, and it is a stunning medium toned blue shade with a little bit of a violet purple reflect. That is really nice. It will require some building up though, as you can see, and it has a beautiful pearly sheen to it. Then we have the shade Dim Out. This is described as a midnight blue matte. This is such a beautiful and rich deep blue shade. It isn't really like a navy shade because it has some intensity to it, but it is definitely a beautiful, richly pigmented dark blue shade. And I really, really love this color. And I love that Melt does these deep, colorful matte shades. Next up is the shade King Stud. This is described as a royal sapphire metallic shade. This is a beautiful sapphire blue. It's richly pigmented. It's like a jewel tone blue. It's really stunning. I like that shade, and it's very smooth to apply as well. Moving on to the bronzes, we have the shade Beamin', which is described as a radiant pale gold. This is a little bit softer as well, and it is more on the sheer side, so I would use this as an accent shade or over other shades to make them a little bit lighter. This is a beautiful warm toned champagne gold, and it applies pretty smoothly. It's just more on the sheer side. Then we have Hot Wire, which is described as a scorching orange copper, and this one is a foiled shade. This is such a beautiful orangey copper shade, and it is ultra smooth. It applies so well. I really, really do like that shade. The application was just effortless. Then we have Hammered. This one is described as a matte mahogany. This is the second and last matte in the palette. There are only 2 matte shades, as you can tell from the color story. But this is such a beautiful, rich coffee brown shade. It's more on the warm side, so it's definitely gonna work with the bronzy tones in this palette. I really, really love the shade. It's really smooth. It applies so well. Stunning. Then we have Nailed. This is described as a true bronze shimmer, and this is exactly as it's described. It's a true brown bronze shade. It's on the medium tone side, so it's not a dark bronze, and I think that just complements the overall color story so well. So here you have all 8 shades swatched, and I am just so in love with how these applied. The only tricky one really is Skylight. It's a little bit looser and definitely on the sheer side. Beamin' is also loose, but it is smoother. It is not as chunky as Skylight. The 2 mattes are stunning. The other shimmer shades apply so well. I can't wait to pop these on the eyes. And just popping in to let you guys know that I removed the swatches and I had very minimal to no staining. The only shade that left a little bit of staining behind is the deep matte blue shade. So let's go ahead and chat some more about the details of this palette. Now before we jump into the demonstration and I show you the 2 looks that I created using this palette, I wanted to jump into some of the product details. So this palette retails for $48. There are 8 shades included, and it contains a net weight of 15.3 grams or 0.54 ounces, which equates to roughly 1.91 grams of product in each pan, and that is about 0.0675 ounces, which is larger than a small size eyeshadow on the market, which is typically around 0.05 ounces. So you are getting a pretty decent amount of product in this palette for the price point. But again, you're only getting 8 shades, so keep that in mind when you consider the value of this palette. This palette is manufactured in the USA, and it has an intended usage life of 12 months. Of course, that is just a recommendation. These are powder products, so you can use them as long as you're comfortable with them. If it changes texture or smell, then that would be your indication that these are expired. The other thing I wanted to mention is a couple of the ingredients that are in this palette. So the base ingredient is mica and synthetic fluorphlogopite, which is a synthetic mica. So you're getting tons of shimmer in these eyeshadows, and they do not have talc in this formulation from what I can tell. The other ingredient that pops out to me is mineral oil, which is a cheaper ingredient that you will find in drugstore makeup. So more cost-effective brands such as Makeup Revolution, LA Girl, and Profusion will incorporate mineral oil in their ingredient list. But what I also found interesting is that this ingredient list also includes hydrogenated oils, and those are soybean oil, olive oil, and jojoba oil. I've never truly seen that in an eyeshadow formulation, but I can tell from the texture that they do have that more oily feel to them, which actually works out great for me. I love the application of those shades on my lids. They also include dimethicone, so I'm not sure if they're just supplementing the slip with a little bit of oil while still incorporating dimethicone. This is also described as an eyeshadow palette, which is something that you guys are probably taking for granted these days. But most palettes that are coming out on the market with these richly pigmented shades tend to be pigment palettes because they include ingredients that may cause staining around the eyes and are not approved by the FDA for use around the eyes. This is in fact an eyeshadow palette, so all these ingredients are safe for eye use. Another thing to note is that this formulation is indicated as vegan. It does not contain carmine or any other animal byproducts, so if you are looking for a vegan formulation, this is indeed vegan. And although this is not outright indicated as cruelty-free, it is manufactured in the USA and not exported to China, so we can rest assured that this is also a cruelty-free product. As far as where you can pick this palette up, it seems to be listed on the Melt Cosmetics website and also on Beauty Bay, and I also see here that Camera Ready Cosmetics carries this palette as well. So it isn't currently available on the Sephora website, and I am not sure it is coming to the Sephora website. Maybe that is later down the line because they did discontinue the blueprint stack, but again, I'm not sure if it's actually coming to Sephora because I've heard some little birdies in the wind say that this is going to be a limited edition palette, so bear that in mind. So this is one of the smaller eyeshadow palettes from Melt Cosmetics, so it does retail for that $48 that is typical for their 8-pan eyeshadow palettes, and it's also the same price point as the blueprint stack when it was available for sale. So the price point hasn't changed there. And Melt Cosmetics has always been a higher priced indie brand, and indie brands tend to have higher priced products because they don't benefit necessarily from outside investors and the economies of scale, so they do have to charge a higher price point for manufacturing their products since they're manufactured in lower quantities. But that is something that always pops out. It's something that is always mentioned about Melt Cosmetics eyeshadow palettes, that they are on the higher price point. So bear that in mind. This has to be something that is worth it to you, both with the color story and with how much value you place in having this added to your collection. So now that I've given you all that information, let's go ahead and show you the two looks that I created using this palette. And we're gonna start out with more of a bronzy themed look. So let's go ahead and jump right into it. So I'm starting off with my eyes already primed and prepped and my brows already filled in. I applied a bit of my Ulta Beauty Full Coverage Liquid Concealer in the shade Tan Neutral all over my lids and blended it out. And now we're gonna go in with our palette. So I'm gonna start out with the shade Nailed all over my lids. And this shade is a beautiful bronze shade and it's very creamy. It picked up really well on my brush. This is a Anastasia Beverly Hills A3 eye shader brush. And I'm using this eyeshadow dry. I'm not dampening my brush or anything, and that applies so well. Then we'll go in with the shade Hot Wire, and I'm using the same brush and just applying this on the outer lid area. This one is a little bit more orange tone, so I just want to pop up that orangey copper right on that outer lid. And this doesn't really show up that much different than the Nailed shade. It's just a slightly bit more orange and they blend really well together, no issue. Then I'm gonna go in with the shade Beamin', and I'll grab that on a Rephr number 12 pencil brush. This is a rounded pencil brush, and just pop that on the inner tear duct. This one is a little flakier, so I feel like I should go ahead and dampen my brush. It applies well dry, but I want to get a little bit more punch from it. So I'm just going to dampen my brush slightly, and I'll just go back in and pop that color right on that inner tear duct area. And that really picks up well now, and we'll try to blend out the edge without losing the intensity. So I'll wipe off the brush and then just go in buffing motions around the edge of the color so we don't get any harsh lines from using the shadow wet. And I think that blends out pretty nicely. Now let's go in with the matte deep brown, which is hammered. And I'm going to apply that with a shader brush first. This is the Sonia G Worker 2 brush. And I'm just patting that on the outer V and outer crease area. And I'm using patting motions to get the color to layer up first. And then I'll lightly go around the edge to blend it out. But first I want to deposit the color. and then I'll clean off the brush. So I got as much of the product as I could from the brush, and then I'll go around the edge of the color just to blur it out. And that is blending out really easily, no issues. Ew, it's not patchy either, which is fantastic. And I'll go in with a small blending brush. This is the Builder Pro from Sonia G, and apply some more of that color and just do small circular motions to blend it upwards and across the crease line. That is beautiful. Oh yeah, that is stunning. All right, that looks good. I'm gonna go in with my brow bone highlight. I'm just gonna use Blur, which is also from Melt Cosmetics, because there is no brow bone highlight shade in this palette and I need to set my concealer down. So I'm just gonna run this shade right under my brow and along the edge of the brow bone shade just to tame it a bit. And I think that looks great. So let's move on to the lower lash line. I'm gonna go in with the shade Dim Out. That is the matte deep blue in the palette, and we're gonna run that on the lower lash line area on the outer section. This is such a beautiful blue. It kind of blends out into like a dark teal as you blend it. So it's not like a real true rich navy. Stunning. And then I'll grab a little bit of the shimmery deep blue, which is King Stud. And since I'm going on my lower lash line, I don't want any flakiness in my eyes, so I'm gonna dampen my brush a bit. And we're gonna run that on the inner lower lash line. And that may be translating a little bit deep, so I'm gonna grab a little bit of Skylight and I'm gonna run that just on the very inner lower lash line using a flat definer brush from Sonia G, just to brighten that up. All right, I think that looks good. Let's go ahead and pop on some lashes and I will be right back. So here we have it. The eyes are completely done and I really love this. The colors on the lid are stunning. They blended so well together. The matte, oh my god, it's so creamy. It applies so well, it's so pigmented. The lower lash line, that pop of color, what? I really love this look. So let's go ahead now and finish up with a change of outfit and applying the rest of my face. So I'll be right back. Alright guys, so here you have it. This is the final look. I think this is such a stunning look. The eyeshadows applied really well. I really do like the warmth that you get from the shimmer shades. The matte shade applied so beautifully. Everything was just effortless and I absolutely love it. Should we go ahead now and do a second look? I think so. So let's go ahead and do a second look. Alright guys, it's time for look number dos. So I'm gonna do a blue look now because of course that's what I'm going to do. So let's just dive right in. I'm gonna start with the matte deep blue, which is Dim Out, and I'm gonna grab that on a Real Techniques number 300 brush and we're just gonna pack that on the outer V area. Oh my god, I love this blue so much. Should we zoom in a little more? Are you good there? I am picking up the color just on the tops of these bristles and pressing it and pushing it into my skin so I can get the full color payoff. And this is a synthetic brush, so it's really giving me a lot of color payoff. Oh, I love that. Alright, I hope blend-in won't be an issue, but we're just packing that on the outer lid and outer crease area. I cleaned off the majority of the color off the brush and I'm gonna go around the edge of the color to blend and blur it out just to see how easily it blends. And ooh, look how easily that blurs. I love that. It blurred without losing the depth, so it looks like I have a lighter color blending that out. That is nice. That is what I look for in a deep shade, that it can still blur out and blend out without any harsh lines, and it actually fades into a lighter color. So I don't want to make this look too blue, you know what I mean, because not everybody is going to go for a full-on blue look. So I want to make it a more wearable blue, even though you're probably like, all right, I'm not even wearing that already. But I'm trying to like show you guys how to incorporate color that's a little bit more toned down, that you can still incorporate with neutrals, you know what I'm saying? So that's the look I'm going for. So then with that being said, I'm gonna go in with the shade King Stud, which is the shimmery dark blue, and I'm gonna grab that on a small shader brush. This is actually from Koki. I got this at Rite Aid. It's in the drugstore. So this is a synthetic brush, and it's this 604, which is the medium eyeshadow brush. And I'm popping this shimmery blue on the outer lid. So I'm not pulling it all the way in. I'm applying it just on the outer lid next to that rich deep blue. And this is applying so well. I didn't dampen my brush or anything. This is just picking up and pressing into the lid really easily. So these two blues already fantastic. Now I'm gonna go in with a clean brush. This is another Koki brush actually, and this one is the large shadow brush. It's the 602, and I'm just gonna blur the edge of that color so it doesn't look harsh at all, and it does blend out nicely without losing the pigmentation and opacity, which I really like. So to blend out colors, go in with a clean brush if you're not comfortable going in with the brush you already use, like cleaning it off. Sometimes you just need to go in with a clean brush so it doesn't muddy the color. That looks great. I have some fallout here, so just be mindful of that. You might want to just go ahead and do your eyeshadow first, especially when you're doing like bold looks like this. Do your eyeshadow first before you do your foundation. Alright, so now what I'm gonna do is go in between the shades Beam In and Nailed, kind of mix them together to lighten up the nailed shade a bit. And I'm going in with the Koki 604 again. First going in with Nailed, just on the lid. Again, I didn't dampen my brush, and that is applying so smoothly. And then I picked up Beam In, and we're just gonna go right on top of that. And that will help to lighten up the nailed shade, so it's not as bronzy, it's a little bit lighter. So you see on both sides, this one is a little richer, this one is lighter. And I'll just clean off my brush and go at the edge of that color again to blend out the edges. And I do have fallout again because these shades are a little bit more of a loose shimmer, so there's some fallout all over my face, but they still applied really well on the lids, and I didn't have to do much to get the pigmentation, and I didn't have to dampen my brush. I'm going back in with the shimmery blue just to blend the colors a little bit, because some of that bronzy tone got too far on the outer lid. I still want that shimmery blue to show up, and we'll just blend the edges so everything is seamless. Alright, let me clean up a little bit here and do my under eye concealer so we can finish up the lower lash line. Okay, I went ahead and applied foundation and concealer off camera. I'm gonna go in with the Blur eyeshadow as my brow highlight. This is also from Melt, as you guys already know. I love this eyeshadow. If I can recommend any single to pick up from Melt, it would be this one. It works so well to tame color on the brow bone. You can also use it as a highlight, but it works best as an eraser shade almost. So it tames some of that blue at the edge. You can see it pulls it down a little bit, so it's not as high on the brow bone. So definitely highly recommend this shade. Now on the lower lash line, let's go in with the shade Dim Out again, which is the deep blue. And we're just gonna apply that on the outer lower lash line. I think this is definitely my favorite shade of the entire palette. And now let's go in with a shade that I haven't used yet. This is the shade Deadbolt. It is the lighter medium tone blue in the palette, and I am going to apply that on the inner lower lash line. That is a pretty shade. Oh yeah, I like that. It is getting into my eyes, but that's fine. I can dampen my brush to help prevent that, but it still applies pretty nicely without a damp brush. Alright, now I'm gonna go ahead and apply mascara and lashes, and I'll be right back. Alright, so here are the eyes completely done, and I am in love with this look, alright? But I think we're still due for a bit of an outfit change, would you say? So I'm gonna finish up the look and I'll be right back. Alright guys, here we are with the final look. I just slapped on a pretty simple, light, like rosy pink lip, and I think this is so beautiful. I love the final look. I love the eyeshadow. I just love how everything blended, how everything turned out. And I think, again, this is more of a wearable look. You don't have to apply all the blues that I did. You can just do the outer V and tame it with the bronze shade. Of course, if you're looking to have a more toned down look. And overall, this look turned out exactly how I wanted it to. I didn't have any hiccups with the shades. Everything blended really well, blended seamlessly, nothing got patchy. It was just overall such an easy look to accomplish, and I really love the end result. So let me know what you guys think of this second look. I also adore the first look. So which one is your favorite? Let me know. And after using this palette a couple of times, I've used it off camera and I've used it for these two looks for you guys, I will say I absolutely love this palette. And I didn't originally pick up the stack that they had, the blueprint stack, because I didn't like the split pans. I don't like split pans, and like I don't like that whole situation. I'd rather have a palette, and I am glad they finally released this in the palette form. And I'm absolutely in love. And I personally really do enjoy Melt's formulation. I like their eyeshadows. I specifically love their mattes. And even though I don't always fall in love with their shimmer formulations, I can still make them work with a sticky primer or just by applying them damp. So I don't have a problem with like the more flaky textures that they have for some of their shimmers. And not all of their shimmers have that formulation. But their mattes for me is where the magic really happens, because Melt is one of the only brands that comes out with really rich, colorful, deep shades. And these work so well on deeper skin tones. They build up nicely, they have the pigmentation, and they blend out well. I haven't had any trouble with the mattes in this palette. And mind you, to be fair, there are only two mattes in this palette, but they both worked so well. The blue is amazing. It blends out into this beautiful like turquoisey sky blue once you blend out the edges. And that's just one color, but it looks like I have multiple blue shades on my eyes. And then the warm tone brown here, stunning as well. It does the same thing. It blends out into kind of an orangey warm tone caramelly hue while maintaining the depth where you place it in the outer V. So I absolutely love that. I think the shimmers here too, for the most part, work really well. The shade Nailed It, which is that bronze shade with the warmer orangey toned bronze hot wire, along with Beamin', which is that lighter champagne shade, as well as King Stud, which is the deep shimmery blue. Those have a great texture to them. They're very smooth. They apply well with a stiff synthetic brush, and they don't really dust away and flake off. You don't have to damp your brush to use them, but they also work well with a damp brush. The two shades at the end, Skylight and Deadbolt, these benefit from using a sticky primer or using your brush damp, but they still perform pretty well. They're just a little bit looser. The shimmer is a little bit looser. So you do want to go ahead and press these onto the lids rather than sweeping them, because then you're going to get shimmer everywhere. But overall, love the color story. I think you can get neutral looks out of this as well as blue looks. You can mix them together. And then this also pairs well with other palettes. So you can mix in other mattes, other colorful shades, and I think it actually makes a great pairing palette. The thing about it is you will definitely need to pull in a brow bone shade. If you're into more of a matte highlight, more like a skin tone shade, that's not in this palette. Again, there are only two mattes, and those two mattes are really deep jewel tone shades. The shimmers too, I wouldn't apply them on the brow bone. Just like, no, that's not what they're for. So you definitely need to pull in your own personal highlight from your collection, which I don't think is a problem. There are so many shades you probably have in your collection that you can pair with this palette. So overall, I give this palette a thumbs up. I love it. I absolutely love it. I didn't get any patchiness from the shades. They didn't share out, and they just applied and blended beautifully. So let me know what you guys think. Let me know what you think about the two looks. Again, tell me which one is your favorite, and hopefully you found this video helpful and also found the swatches helpful to see if this is a palette that you want to go ahead and pick up on your own. But I will reiterate that the major drawback to Melt Cosmetics palettes would be the price point. This is $48 for 8 shades. And with so many options on the market now, it's a little bit difficult to spend $48 in an 8-pan palette unless you completely love the color story. But as far as the performance and the application goes, I think this is stellar. It does work really well. So if you're into blues and bronzes, this may be right up your alley, but that price point is a little bit harder to swallow. But again, I just love the formulation and I love their color stories, and they have a unique quality when it comes to those color stories. However, indie brands are stepping their game up, okay? So we're seeing more palettes with fun color stories, with rich deep tones that suit darker skin tones. So I don't know that Melt can keep that price point up and still be competitive on the market. So again, hopefully this video was helpful in making your decision in whether or not you're gonna pick this palette up. Again, make sure it's a color story that you enjoy, because $48 is a hard pill to swallow, but I don't think you would be disappointed with the formulation and the quality. I think you would really enjoy it if you enjoy this color story and if you don't have a problem with Melt Cosmetics eyeshadow formula, which I personally do not. So I'm gonna go ahead and leave a few details on this palette down below in the description box, along with links on where you can pick them up. So far it's available on the Melt Cosmetics website and also on Beauty Bay. I'm not sure it's coming to Sephora because I've been hearing little things here or there that this is going to be a limited edition palette. So I'm not sure how true that is. So if you wanted to pick it up, maybe you're gonna have to get it sooner rather than later. But again, hopefully this video was helpful in deciding if it is indeed something you want to add to your collection. I'm gonna also leave links to my Instagram and Twitter where you can follow me along. I do post when I upload videos because YouTube is not the best at notifying you guys on when I have new content. So definitely follow me along there. And until my next video, which will be very soon, I'll talk to you. Bye guys!